Have you ever met a woman who walks through life with quiet strength even after life tried to break her? Not perfect, not untouched by pain, but somehow deeply guided. What if I told you that some women carry invisible signs that they are blessed by God in ways the world cannot always see, and today I'm going to share 5 of those signs. Stay with me until the end, because the final lessons may completely change how you see yourself and your life. You know, one of the most powerful and often misunderstood signs that a woman is blessed by God is this simple truth: she feels deeply. And I'm not talking about just being emotional. I'm talking about a depth of feeling that touches everything she experiences: the joy, the pain, the beauty of life, the silent struggles of others, the quiet whispers of her own soul. In a world that constantly encourages people to become tougher, colder, more detached, just to survive, a woman who still allows her heart to remain open is carrying something sacred. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever noticed that some women can walk into a room and immediately sense what others cannot? They feel the tension between people who are smiling but secretly hurting. They notice the friend who says, "I'm fine," but whose eyes tell a different story. They feel gratitude for small moments that most people rush past: the warmth of sunlight on their face, the laughter of a child, the comfort of a genuine conversation. And sometimes this deep sensitivity makes life harder for them. They feel heartbreak more intensely. They absorb the emotions around them like a sponge. They care about people who may never fully appreciate that care. But here's the spiritual truth many people miss: this depth is not a flaw. It is not a weakness. It is not something that needs to be fixed or hidden. It is a form of spiritual intelligence. Because when God blesses someone with a heart that feels deeply, He is giving them the ability to connect with the world in a way that goes far beyond surface level living. A woman who feels deeply is like a river, constantly moving, constantly responding to the landscape of life, sometimes calm, sometimes powerful, but always alive. And just like a river nourishes the land it flows through, her presence nourishes the people around her. She may not even realize how many lives she touches simply by being compassionate, by listening when someone needs to be heard, by offering kindness in moments where others would choose indifference. Let me share something I've observed again and again across cultures and countries. The women who feel the deepest are often the ones who question themselves the most. They wonder why they care so much when others seem able to walk away so easily. They ask themselves why certain moments move them to tears while the rest of the world barely pauses. They worry that maybe they are too sensitive, too emotional, or too intense. But what they don't realize is that the very thing they think makes them fragile is actually what makes them powerful. Imagine a world where nobody felt deeply. No one would stand up for injustice. No one would comfort the broken. No one would feel inspired enough to create art, build communities, or change lives. Every meaningful movement in human history began with someone who felt something so deeply that they refused to ignore it. Compassion is what builds bridges between strangers. Empathy is what turns ordinary people into healers, leaders, and visionaries. And the women who carry this emotional awareness are often the quiet architects of change in their families, their friendships, and their communities. They are the ones who notice when someone is struggling before that person even asks for help. They are the ones who remember birthdays, celebrate victories, and sit beside someone during their darkest nights. Their hearts are like open windows in a closed room, letting fresh air into spaces that would otherwise remain suffocating. Of course, this blessing also comes with responsibility, because feeling deeply means learning how to protect your heart while still keeping it open. It means understanding that empathy does not require you to carry everyone else's burdens. It means realizing that compassion for others must be balanced with compassion for yourself. A spiritually blessed woman learns that her sensitivity is not meant to drain her, but to guide her. It becomes a compass, helping her navigate relationships, choices, and opportunities. When something feels wrong, she senses it before the evidence even appears. When something feels meaningful, she feels a quiet pull toward it, like the universe gently nudging her in the right direction. And if you recognize this in yourself, if you are someone who feels the world deeply, who sometimes struggles with the intensity of your own emotions, who cares so much that it occasionally feels overwhelming, then listen carefully. This may not be something you need to overcome. It may be something you need to honor, because a heart that refuses to harden in a harsh world is not ordinary. It is rare. It is courageous. It is spiritually alive. But this is only the beginning of the journey. In fact, what comes next reveals why women with deep hearts are often chosen for something greater than they ever imagined. The lessons ahead will connect the dots between sensitivity, resilience, intuition, and purpose in ways that might completely change how you see your own life. So stay with me, because the next insight might explain something you've been wondering about yourself for years. And trust me, the final lessons are even more powerful. Many people miss them. And when they do, they miss the very truths that could transform the way they understand their struggles, their strengths, and the quiet blessings already present in their lives. Another powerful sign that a woman is blessed by God is something many people misunderstand when they first see it. Her life has tested her, but those tests never defined her. In fact, the women who carry the deepest blessings are rarely the ones who had easy journeys. Their paths are usually marked by moments that try to shake their confidence, break their spirit, or make them question their worth. And if you're listening to this right now, you probably know exactly what I mean. Maybe you've experienced rejection that made you doubt your abilities. Maybe you trusted someone who didn't honor that trust. Maybe you worked hard for something and watched it slip through your fingers anyway. These moments can feel unfair when they happen. They make you wonder why life seems to demand so much strength from you, while others appear to move through the world effortlessly. But there is a quiet truth hidden inside these struggles, a truth that only reveals itself with time. Sometimes the women who are meant to carry the greatest purpose are also the ones life trains the hardest. Think of it like the process of forging steel. Raw metal is placed into intense heat, hammered repeatedly, and shaped through pressure that would destroy weaker materials. Yet when the process is complete, what emerges is something far stronger than before. Spiritually resilient women are created in a similar way. Every disappointment, every difficult season, every moment when they felt alone was not random chaos. It was preparation. It was life shaping their character, deepening their understanding, and teaching them lessons that cannot be learned in comfort. The woman who has experienced heartbreak learns how to recognize genuine love. The woman who has faced rejection learns how to stand firmly in her own value. The woman who has walked through loneliness learns how to appreciate meaningful connection in a way others might take for granted. These experiences carve wisdom into her soul the same way rivers carve valleys into mountains over time. And what's fascinating is that when you look at women who have this quiet strength, you'll notice something remarkable about the way they move through life. They don't pretend the past didn't hurt. They don't erase the difficult chapters of their story. Instead, they carry those experiences like a library of lessons, each one reminding them of how far they've come. I've met women who lost opportunities they worked years for, only to discover later that those closed doors redirected them towards something far more meaningful. I've spoken to women who felt invisible in rooms where their voices should have mattered, and yet those moments pushed them to build platforms where other voices could finally be heard. I taught this earlier. They watched women rebuild their confidence after relationships that made them question their worth. And through that process, they discovered a level of self-respect they never knew they had. These are not accidents. They are transformations. And the most beautiful part is that women who survive these storms develop something the world desperately needs: perspective. They learn that temporary failures are not permanent identities. They understand that pain can be a teacher instead of a prison. They begin to see challenges not as punishments, but as invitations to grow stronger, wiser, and more grounded in who they truly are. Of course, that doesn't mean the journey is easy. There are nights when doubt still whispers in their ears. There are moments when exhaustion makes them wonder how much more they can handle. But here is the difference between someone who is defined by hardship and someone who is strengthened by it. The blessed woman keeps moving forward anyway. She may slow down, she may pause to breathe, she may even cry when the weight becomes heavy, but she refuses to stop. She understands that every step forward, no matter how small, is proof that the struggle did not win. And if you pay attention to the women who carry this resilience, you'll notice another subtle transformation. Over time, they become sources of strength for others. Their experiences allow them to offer guidance that comes from genuine understanding rather than empty advice. When someone shares a fear or a setback, they don't respond with judgment. They respond with empathy because they remember what it felt like to stand in that exact place. Their past becomes a lantern they use to light the path for someone else walking through darkness. And that is one of the quiet miracles of being tested by life. The pain that once felt isolating eventually becomes the very thing that connects you to other. Or imagine standing at the base of a mountain after climbing it. The journey up was exhausting, filled with steep slopes and moments when you wanted to turn back. But once you reach the top and look down, you realize something extraordinary. The path you climbed is now visible to others. People behind you can follow the same trail, guided by the steps you carved into the mountain with your perseverance. This is exactly what resilient women do without even realizing it. They transform their struggles into maps that help others find their way forward. So if your life has felt like a series of tests, if you sometimes wonder why your path required so much courage, consider the possibility that these experiences are not signs of misfortune but signs of preparation, because the women who carry divine blessings are often the ones entrusted with challenges that develop their inner strength. They are the ones who learn to rise again and again until resilience becomes part of their identity. But here's something important you need to remember. As we continue this journey together, the story doesn't end with resilience. In fact, the next lesson reveals a deeper layer of what makes these women extraordinary. Surviving hardship is powerful, but what they learn to do after surviving is what truly sets them apart. It has to do with a quiet inner voice that begins guiding their decisions, their relationships, and their purpose in life. Many people ignore this voice, but the women who are truly blessed learn to trust it. And when they do, everything about their path begins to change. So stay with me, because the insights ahead are even more powerful than what we've discussed so far. If you leave before the final lessons, you might miss the very truths that help connect all of these experiences into something meaningful. And sometimes, understanding that deeper purpose is exactly why it transforms a difficult past into the beginning of an extraordinary future. Another deeply powerful sign that a woman is blessed by God is something quiet, almost invisible to the outside world, yet incredibly influential in the direction of her life. She trusts her intuition, that inner voice, that subtle feeling in the chest or the stomach, that moment when something inside whispers, pay attention, something here matters. Many people move through life ignoring that voice because it doesn't shout like logic does, and it doesn't argue like fear does. Intuition is different. It speaks softly. It feels like a gentle nudge rather than a command. Yet for women who are spiritually aligned, that quiet voice becomes one of the most